Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey everyone, welcome back to The Wilder Ride, where we are getting wilder by the minute, a podcast that celebrates the films of Gene Wilder 1 minute at a time. And for season 2, we are diving into Blazing Saddles 1, slip into something a little bit more comfortable minute at a time. I'm your host, I'm Alan Sanders.
I am your co-host, Walt Murray.
And joining us again is Tierney Steele to continue this conversation with Madeline Kahn. Tierney, welcome.
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome, come on in. And also, it's more comfortable.
How do you like me setting that up on a T for you?
It's beautiful. But first, we have to get to Madeline Kahn. I think this might be the first literal spit take I've been involved with in one of these podcasts.
Gene Wilder definitely does that at the very beginning. Let's go ahead and set the stage for the audience that's out there listening. If you remember from yesterday, we had just wrapped up the song and dance number on the stage. We shot a bunch of holes into the top of the roof of the theater, and a note was slipped to Sheriff Bart, and he started to read that note, so we'll continue it as one line from yesterday saying, "I must see you alone in my dwessing woom, white after the show." And before we end today, we're going to be with Sheriff Bart saying, "Pitta, baby." So let me ask you this. First and foremost, I get having an accent. Does one generally write out their accent?
Yes.
For non-comedy purposes? No. For comedy purposes, yeah. Yeah, are we to infer that this is... Because you said in the original script she handed it to him.
Correct.
After singing in her accent, so that would have made more sense, but here it's just, well, but who else? You know, obviously it's her. He knows it's her. The only time I've ever gotten taken backstage, I literally was led there by the person, so that doesn't, I don't know.
Whoa, hang on a second. You've been, wait.
I just wanted to make
let's
that
not let that one
as
slide by.
Because it wasn't.
Do we have one of those almost famous kind of girls in the room?
Band-Aids? No. Although I think I did request Almost Famous Minute. Something with Sapphire. Because I love her complaining at the end about the new girls. But yeah, this is a weird... I do like that Gene Wilder looks kind of surprised at how well that went. When he's wiping his sleeve.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I read that face anyway.
Well, getting back to the actual way this note must be written, exactly as it is in the script is written, "I must see you alone in my dwessing woom, white after the show."
I must see you alone in my dwessing room, right after the show.
So I guess there's no doubt whatsoever from our perspective, if all we can do is hear, we never get a chance to do that insert shot of seeing the handwritten note.
Yeah.
So we don't need to be told who it comes from, do we?
No, we know exactly where that came from.
Looks as though Lili von Shtupp is about to put the plan into effect that Hedley Lamar wants her to seduce and abandon the sheriff of Rockridge. And this is just the very start of that plan. So just after the spit take, and by the way, I think he does a better spit take in Young Frankenstein. Don't you think so, Walt?
He does. And I was trying to remember how many spit takes we had in Young Frankenstein. It was 2, right?
No, just one.
Just the one. Okay. Yeah, maybe.
We were talking, we had the guys from BK on the air who talked about being involved in a play that had 3 spit takes, and BK was saying, okay, 1 spit take is funny. 2, you're really stretching it. 3, now it's just stupid.
Yeah, but the rule of 3. Maybe they were going for it.
Not the show that I saw.
They had like 19.
I think it's pretty clear I try and see the best in people.
There you go. The eternal
Why
optimist.
would you do that? Have you met people?
She's still young.
I know.
She hasn't been abused like
Of course,
we have
I
yet.
have a job that lends itself towards not trusting people, so.
Oh, yeah, you're a private detective. You actually get to see the worst of humanity.
Yes,
Oh,
I do.
jeez.
I think my husband's cheating on me. Let me tell you, he is. Here's the pictures.
He is. He is.
I don't even need to go. Just if you think, yes.
Yeah, if you're sitting here, he's cheating.
Oh, goodness. So we get a kind of a sloppy spit take. Is it surprising to the Waco Kid? Do you really think that he's like surprised that Sheriff Bart is being invited to the back dressing room of Lili von Shtupp?
You know, that's a good question. When I was looking at this minute earlier, I kept thinking, is it really that shocking? And I don't think it should be.
Tierney, what do you think?
Well, I'm trying to think because all I can focus on is how clearly Gene Wilder is concentrating on what he's about to do. So it's kind of hard to read his character's motivations. But I think it's fair for him to be surprised because it's not like they said, oh, let's go see this performer. He's like, oh, yeah, I saw her, when she played New York the other day. Like, oh, it'll be great to talk to her again. There's nothing that has previously led him to think that these two would interact. You know what? Actually, the spit take works better. The fact that Bart was just handed a piece of paper. Hey, what's that say? Says I'm gonna go, shtup. Yeah, spit take. If she had handed it to him, that's different because he would have seen that interaction.
Right.
So I think because of the way they ended up having to shoot it, it works. It does work.
Now, well, I know we talked about this a while ago when we first introduced Lili von Shtupp, but Shtupp being the Yiddish word, it's slang for to nudge, to stuff, or to poke. But we also know it was a definite double entendre of having sex.
Look, you two from last minute do not get to pretend that this is new information to you.
Wait, what?
Using the word poke and implying other things.
I used to love that when Facebook had the poke function. I was like, what does that really mean?
I still laugh about that. I get... And the people that still do that, it's like my great aunt and people like that. You're like, please stop.
I don't want you to poke me. Please, not in public. It's an open page. Stop.
All my friends can see this.
Hey, I heard you got poked by your aunt. Would you just shut up?
What kind of family?
Never talk to me again.
Well, we're a very close-knit family.
Oh, it's terrible.
Oh, God.
Yeah, so...
I can fix this. Speaking of knits, 70s clothes, I did not get the full effect of Sheriff Bart's ensemble last minute. The fringe, the 70s colors, this is a whole look, isn't it?
You don't like that suede jacket with the...
when he crosses the room and like the fringe is swaying 6 inches each direction.
Well, he's a hip sheriff, isn't he?
I don't know how to tell you this, but this is exactly what Alan's wearing right now.
Oh,
Stop.
Well, just the jacket.
I'm not allowed to do that anymore. I got caught.
walked right into that one.
You know, something I forgot to bring up yesterday, and this is how movies are made, by the way, folks. They don't necessarily shoot them in order. They shoot whatever scene they're shooting. And obviously, the day they were shooting Harvey Korman as Hedley Lamar coming into the same room is the same day, because during the song and dance number, at some point, she gets a little tear in the sleeves of her negligee, or the overcoat that's kind of the sheer arms. You'll see little tears in the arms. Those are no longer here, which means this is either a second outfit she puts on, or they shot this all at the same time before the song and dance number.
What is that?
Yeah, I didn't either.
I totally forgot to bring that up yesterday. If you go back to yesterday's minutes, she does sort of like a arms outstretched. You see a little rip in the sheer part of the arms of the sleeves of her. I don't know what you call that. Sort of like an over negligee or something over the corset.
I'm sure you just say robe, but yeah, I get what you mean. Like, this isn't, terry cloth.
Yeah, I didn't look up a whole lot about French negligee and French wear. So I didn't know what you call that.
Jacket.
You had the opportunity to say that this was research to your wife. And I'm just saying.
Did I remind you that I've got girls old enough to be in college? What do you think actually happens anymore in our house? We pay bills and go to bed. That's about it.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm letting down the fairer sex here, but I have no idea what the actual term is. But yeah, like between his fringe, her, and I will say, lovely legs. Good job, Mel Brooks.
Mm-hmm.
And how shiny Gene Wilder's coat, like the sleeve, because you notice it because he's wiping his hand on it. It just, I was very aware of when this movie came out, watching this minute.
Oh yeah, you like Gene's like almost patent leather cowboy jacket?
Yes, that's what it is.
I didn't know they had that in the Old West.
Oh, I'm sure they did. I mean, this is accurate to the time, right?
Oh yeah, to 1974. To the time they filmed it.
You know, I'll never forget when those became big, the pants out of that material, and I had a friend that had them, and we got stuck in a rainstorm. He's like, "This is great. I can just wipe it down." I was like, "Oh God."
I just wipe my pants. Look at that. It's like plastic.
Yeah.
Well, Walt, this, and for Tierney joining us in this moment when she answers the door, as we heard Tierney sort of parrot when we started this minute, this is another one of those mirrorings of what we had earlier. She says it exactly the same way.
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome, come on in.
But she says it a little bit faster than the first time when Hedley showed up.
Yeah, could you read that one more time?
Willkommen, bienvenue, welcome, come on in.
So she says welcome, welcome or come on in 4 different languages. Is that right?
Well, 2 different.
Yeah.
She says it in German, willkommen. Then she says bienvenue, which is French. Then she says welcome, which is American. Come on in.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
So she's saying welcome 4 different
Yeah.
times.
Okay.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
Oh, I love it.
Uh,
I'll do this all the time. Somebody's knocking on my office door or something. I'm like,
Yeah.
welcome in, bienvenue, welcome, come on in.
And you have to have the lilt to it. It's like a little song.
Oh, it is. It's very, especially this version that she does in this minute versus earlier with Hedley Lamar. This one's more playful and a little quicker. Like she knows who's at the door.
Oh, maybe she does.
Well, she invited him.
Where did he get this flower? It's driving me nuts.
Maybe they got a girl in the lobby.
Is this like the thing where they go around trying to sell the flowers in a club?
Have you ever been in a restaurant where they do that?
Ugh.
Would you care to buy a flower for the missus?
Yeah.
Shh. It's my girlfriend. I don't want the missus to find out. Get out of here.
I was going to say, it was always only with someone who I've met 5 minutes earlier. I don't even know if this drink is going well. Get away from us.
Yeah. Oh my God. I'm so glad you said that. I had a friend of mine who went on a first date and they go to like a Mexican restaurant and they happen to have the night where a bunch of the mariachi guys are walking around like, should we serenade your senorita? And he's like, I just met her. I don't know if we're serenading anything. Can I pay you to go to another table?
I had that happen to me at a business lunch one time.
Oh.
And it was already not a comfortable conversation. It was a kind of a difficult conversation where, well, anyway, long story short.
Mariachi music will make it better, obviously.
Oh, obviously. And then some guy comes up and tries to sell us a flower. And I'm like, no, thanks. This could not get any more uncomfortable. And then that happens. So
this is the one case where that person was actually useful. Is this bar.
Well, do you remember when you used to like go to intersections or whatever and it'd be like some crazy cult selling flowers, like the Moonies or something? I wonder if the Wild West version of the Moonies was out there selling flowers outside the bar.
And what's even better is most of the people listening right now to this podcast have absolutely no idea what you're talking about.
Thank God. Oh, no, I would imagine our listeners probably have some sort of...
Well, maybe some of them do.
Yeah. Knowing our listeners, they're pretty smart. Somebody's going to post about the Moonies. And
there were still Moonies giving out literature on Boston Common in 2008, 2009?
What?
Really?
2009, I want to say. Yeah, my friend came home and she's like, someone gave it, because there's always people trying to be like, oh, buy this book, whatever. And she's like, no, like, they forced it into my hands. And I'm looking at it, and I looked at the back, and I'm like, this, you know, like, when your brain can't quite put it together. And then our friend
yeah,
goes,
I'm very familiar with that.
That's the Moonies. Like, whatever the official written out thing was.
Yeah, I didn't think they were still around, really.
I don't know. But poor Kim came back and was just like, so confused. And she was originally from South Dakota, and this was her first semester living in Boston. And she's just like, what is wrong?
Where am I?
So yeah.
Walt, I know it's always kind of interesting to kind of do a throwback to earlier minutes when we first got introduced to Lili von Shtupp with Hedley Lamarr. But I want to remind our audience, but also for our guest who may not have heard those minutes yet, there was supposed to be a character by the name of Leopold who was actually sort of a servant inside her room. And let's remind everybody that Leopold is dressed in a World War I German officer's tunic. And, Walt, I know you and we chatted about this, how similar he sounded to another German we know from maybe season 1. Because it describes him as having a wooden arm that he has to constantly go to put into place.
Oh, God.
So Leopold is supposed to actually answer the door here. And he's supposed to go, and as Bart comes in, he says, I believe I have an appointment with Miss Von Dyke. Which, remember, we talked about the fact that they changed the name from Von Dyke to Lili von Shtupp. We hear Lily off screen. Leopold, take the gentleman's hat. Bart hands his hat to Leopold, who takes it and then transfers it to his wooden arm, accidentally crushing it. Bart looks after it. I love that hat. Lily then enters, and that's when Bart hands the red rose. So, obviously restaged and different without the casting of Leopold, but I wanted to do a callback from when we first mentioned our allusion to another character, Inspector Kemp, that would end up showing up in the next movie Mel Brooks would work on.
I like this so much better.
I do like it better without Leopold, but I think I know, Walt, you and we were just like, holy crap, they had the idea for the Inspector Kemp. Like, Mel Brooks had thought of this well before Young Frankenstein was brought up, when Gene Wilder, during the filming of this, was convincing Mel Brooks of what to do next.
Yeah.
So that character is
he's a creative guy.
Perfect in Young Frankenstein, and he would have been very awkward in this.
I agree. I think Mel Brooks, and if you
There's so many characters already in this movie.
I agree with that too. Yeah, I
right.
100% agree with you.
And I think what we discussed is, you almost got the sense he was still kind of figuring out this character. And of course, who knows, the actor certainly, Kenneth Mars brought probably his own version of this Leopold character to life with Inspector Kemp. But it definitely doesn't fit here. We've already established she's German. We already had the German Kaiser helmet guys in her routine. To have yet another German, like, just mock character with the wooden arm that has got to constantly go to put in place, it doesn't serve as well here, and definitely was a much better surprise in Young Frankenstein.
Yeah, I agree. That would have just been weird.
Speaking of accents, no, it's not an accent. What is it that Bart says when he first comes into the room before her response to getting the flower?
He says,
Wie geht's, meine Schatzi?
Oh, I listened to this minute so many times. I tried looking while he spoke, looking away to see if that increased my hearing ability. I could not make it out. Have you ever given or received a wed wose, and was it romantic?
Yes, I have given a red rose.
I got given a red rose in college, but it wasn't romantic.
Yeah. I'm going to do the flip side, because generally, at least the way we grew up, I know we're in a different sort of, Me Too generation, but do ladies still like getting random roses delivered to the door? That's for you, Tierney.
It's different, though, because it's not. She invited him back to her dwessing room. And when he gets there, he's got a red rose for her. Like, that's a very different interaction than having flowers delivered. Which maybe might be... yeah.
Then let me change it to, if a guy comes to your door for a first date with flowers in hand, does that work? Does that give you a little lilt in the heart and a little like flutter of the eye?
I'm running it through because I made a face, so my first instinct is like, well, I guess not because I made a face. But I think if it was, there's a difference between flowers in hand and that. So I have been given a red rose on Valentine's Day, and it would have been romantic if the guy hadn't also given one to all his other female friends and not been interested in me at all. So I am very biased to now be suspicious of men bearing single red roses. But I think if I opened the door for a first date and the guy was there with a smile and a rose, I would probably be like, oh, that's cute. Like, what? That's a good move. And that's different than like a whole bouquet of flowers, which then like you have to put in water or something before you can leave, but you opened the door, you're ready to head out. But you know, if it's just like a single flower, I could see that.
You would give him at least E for effort?
Yeah. Yeah, I would. If I opened the door and a guy is standing there with a red rose for our first date, I'd be like, that's adorable. And if he then quotes this movie, keep her.
Yeah, definitely if he quotes this movie, I would say he's a winner.
Wow. I do like how confident he is walking into this room, dealing with being called backstage. So let me ask you this, because Tierney, you made a comment before about being brought backstage. Did you have this same sense of swagger and comfort at being in someone else's dwessing room?
Well, it was a shared room off a bar, so not quite the same experience. No, it's just funny because I was hanging out with a bunch of Movies by Minute podcasters, and Jerry Porter from Indiana Jones Minute was in town playing a show. So he was like, oh, there's a fridge. We can put it in the fridge back there. And so I got to go backstage at the Middle East Downstairs, which is a club in, technically not Boston, but Boston. It's in Cambridge or Somerville, one of those. And I mentioned casually, like, over a year later that I had been in there. And it was like, yeah, that bathroom's I remember someone was talking about how disgusting their bathrooms were. And I'm like, yeah, what you need is the one backstage that's actually cleaned. And she was like,
Backstage
at downstairs. She didn't even say the Middle East downstairs. It was just downstairs. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm pretty sure the guys implied that it was kind of a dump. Like, the esteem in which this person has held me since is just like, yeah, that happened twice.
Wow.
So yeah, that was awesome. And yeah, it was just one of those things where, and for the record, for those listening, like, it's not like, it's a bar. Like, the women's room is perfectly fine at the beginning of the show. It's just by the end of the show. Like, no. There's no toilet paper and everything's
No, sounds fantastic.
It's like any other club. Like, I didn't mean to make it sound worse than it is, because it's perfectly what you would expect.
Look, I just hope to know what it's like one day to be invited backstage. Usually I'm invited to leave.
Oh. Well, in my experience, it's a lot of eating ice cream cake and talking about movies, so... And if Patreon's worth doing.
I was going to say, you did get invited back by a Movies by Minute nerd, so it might be a little different if it's like the Rolling Stones or something.
True. You might end up married by the time you got done if there was the Rolling Stones, so. When Bart does open the door to her entrance, he says, "We got meine Schatzi," which literally translates to, "How are you, my darling?"
Ooh.
Yeah. Oh, he's putting on the move.
Did he do research for this? I mean, he is ready.
I think he already has his mind made up. I've been called backstage. I ain't going home tonight.
It's funny too how
Let me ask
different.
You, okay, in all seriousness, in all seriousness, does that actually end up working in his favor? Because we don't get to see the rest of the scene play out just yet. Walt, you and I have the rest of the week to work this one through. But, you know, without going too far ahead of the minutes, she said earlier to Headley, he's going to be like wet sauerkraut in my hand. Like, she's so used to being able to take these guys who probably come backstage nervous and excited and I can't believe Lily wants to see me. And doesn't look like he's got any fanboy in him. He looks like he's in charge.
Yeah, and along with that, what I was going to say is they have two totally different motives. She is on a mission to kind of cut his legs out from under him. And he thinks he's been called back because, you know, she's so impressed with him and, you know, he got kind of picked out of the audience. So I think you're right. I think he's coming back going, yeah, I've got this one, you know, this one put away. And she is just there initially thinking, you know, I've just got this job to do.
All right. Well, you said something just now that made me go, wait a second.
Go ahead.
Do you think she picked him out simply because he was the most impressive looking person in the crowd? Or do you think...
I think that's what he thinks, but she knows that she's on a mission because Headley has said, hey, here's what you're going to do. You're going to, you know, bring this guy back here and make him fall in love with you, and then you're going to dump him and destroy him.
Well, I know her motivation. I don't know that I necessarily think he's that naive.
No, I think that he thinks that she picked him out of the audience and told him to come back.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the way you made it sound is like he's the most impressive person in the audience, and so he's like, yeah, she picked me. You don't think he's a little bit suspicious and just sort of playing it out to see what happens?
I don't know that I think that.
I don't think so. I don't think he's suspicious at all.
I don't think he's suspicious.
Okay, I'm just asking because it feels like after the way he's been treated, and if you remember, Walt, just before we came to the Rock Ridge Saloon to watch the show, the old woman that had called, you said, up yours to him earlier in the day brought him a pie. So he's still on the receiving end of getting sort of a not treated well yet from this town, and all of a sudden he gets a random note.
But she's not from this town. They could be the two outsiders.
That's right.
That bond together against
point.
the town.
And you know, he is always shocked when people treat him poorly. So he has he has this kind of overly naive expectation that people are going to be good to him.
Well, and he knows German people are into some really kinky stuff anyway.
Yeah, and I think that on the one hand, you're right of, yeah, she is on this mission, and she is still on her mission oriented, but I think it's these moves when he first comes in, because when she calls him in, yeah, she's saying it faster, but she is bored. She's tired, as we've established. But he starts speaking German to her. He's got the, like, part of it is the act, and I think a few of those eye bats are her being like, ooh, I didn't realize I was going to get to enjoy this.
Right, I think she's kind of pleasantly surprised.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and especially, I mean, then we start hitting the point where it's all exclamation points. We're like, that accent, I'm in love, her look, after he says, bit to baby. Like, she is just falling so fast. It's so cute.
I think there's a definite moment where if there was any sense of breaking through her act or her armor, because she's obviously done this before. We know this is her shtick, her tact. She's able to seduce and abandon men, leaving them feeling like wet sauerkraut in her hand. When she asks, do you mind if I slip into something a little more comfortable? And he says,
Bitte, baby.
That moment of like her going, oh, well, wow.
Yeah, it's that reaction.
To me,
she's
that's
just like,
suddenly genuine. Like, wow. Like, I wasn't expecting that. I haven't been expecting anything since he walked in. And I think I really like it. I like it, that little subtle acting bit that Madeline Kahn does with this character to let us just get the first inkling this isn't going to go necessarily the way it always has gone before.
Yeah. Well, and I love, so when she says, won't you sit down, and gestures with the rose, and then he walks past her, you can see, and it is kind of awkward the way it cuts, because the face she's making in the close-up and the face she's making in the room shot are totally different, and so it's a little bit of a jar. Mm-hmm. But the intrigue with which she watches him cross the room and sit down, where she's just like, and again, it's the same thing where it's like, yeah, she's still on a mission, but now she's like, ooh, I'm on a mission. This is good. This guy's gonna be fun. Like, this is gonna be great. Like, that to me, the minute he walks in, she's like, oh, cuter than I thought, maybe.
Yeah.
And then the more they interact, the more she's just like, yes, this is great.
And, I love, and for whatever, we're not going to get into the judgment of when a man and a woman are together and what looks and what works and whether you're sizing someone up. But when he sits down and she asks,
Won't you excuse me for a moment while I slip into something a little bit more comfortable?
His gaze starts at her feet and slowly works its way all the way up before meeting her eyes. Then he says, "Bitte, baby." I mean, she just got sized up from head to toe, but in reverse. Mm-hmm. And it made her almost blush.
Yeah, it's real good.
Let me ask you this, Tierney. You're the woman in the audience today with us, or our guest. How do you get any more comfortable than she is?
Oh, Ma, I'm so glad you asked. I don't know why when I'm pretending to be super girly at Southern. No, I have a note because it's from another minute, but this leads into it. I quote I feel refreshed all the time, and I've realized that my kid is going to kill me when he grows up and realizes that is from Sexy Time in a Mel Brooks movie. Because he is going to grow up thinking that's just something you say when you change.
That's great, though. The fact that you quote that. I quote lines, both female and male lines from this movie all the time. I already told you I do the welcome all the time if somebody knocks on my office door or something. I don't know that I've ever said I feel refreshed. But I have said, can I slip into something a little bit more comfortable?
Yeah, well, and that's the gag, that it's not. But yeah, and again, whatever, he's killing me anyway. Yeah, when I first became a mom, like, anytime I changed a diaper that really needed, I'm like, do you feel refreshed? It's just become such a go-to thing.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
Which is why I'm way too comfortable pretending to be her off and on in these minutes. So I apologize to your listeners for my terrible Madeline Kahn, Marlon Dietrich impersonation.
That is great. All right, as we start to wind this down, we've had the sheriff cross across the room. He's taking a seat, puts his hat down. And she's, of course, asking for permission to go change. Walt, let's remind the audience again, there was an outtake that was not in this theatrical version. So this would be technically another example of a mirrored line or a mirrored scene. Because when she first was supposed to come on stage, and it's the version I saw when it was a television version versus the theatrical, she was wearing a pinstripe suit and a bowler hat and asked all the cowboys, do you mind if I slip into something a little bit more comfortable? And that's when she strips down into the black corset and outfit that we see her perform the song. So we're getting now a callback to the television version, not the theatrical, of asking to slip into something more comfortable.
Oh, but I hate that because the joke is that it's not more comfortable. Like,
well, wait a minute.
That's the joke. She's already wearing lingerie.
Oh, okay. Because the way you made it sound is like what she's wearing is not comfortable, but okay.
No, well, and you know what? Hey, fuck it. I've worn stockings in a guy. It's not, okay? It's a pain in the butt.
Yeah, no, I've heard that.
They move. It's not a good time.
Oh, who said the quote? I want to make sure I get this right. Maybe you guys know it, but was it Carol Burnett or Irma Bombeck? I think it's Irma Bombeck said, The degree to which a man thinks your outfit is sexy is how quickly he hopes to get you out of it.
Which I never got the whole, and again, totally oversharing, but like, I don't get the whole like super complicated lingerie thing because it just seems like it's a time waster. And yeah, and then she comes out and she's in stockings and the sequined outfit with a tail, essentially. And so the joke is that she did not change into something more comfortable.
No, well, it's certainly more accessible, which we don't get to see in this minute, but I know it's so hard to stay focused on what happens right now.
I know, I'm sorry. Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Not to step on your next guest toes. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have somebody else who gets to see that. And we will have a return of Harvey Korman, who wants to know how things are going. So that's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, boy.
Well, we do not get to see what she's changing into. So before we bring this one to a close, Tierney, you've been our guest, so I'm going to come back around to you first. Do you have anything else in this minute that we forgot to talk about?
No, I think I've embarrassed myself enough on the internet for this week.
Well, you're welcome.
I really wish, donkey, he say it in French.
For what?
Thank you. I was trying to do the German.
Merci.
Donkey, merci, you're welcome. Come on in.
Wait a minute. It should be goodbye. No, Walt, do you have anything else in your notes from this minute?
One thing that I had noticed, and we've kind of talked about this through the 59 minutes, which we've already covered, and I can't believe, we have a little shift in his accent again. We've seen him when he's working with the guys on the railroad, where he's, he kind of takes on their banner and tone. We've seen him be a little bit more polished as he took on the role of the sheriff. And now he's, speaking German and he's real suave. So it's interesting to see how his accent and tone change as he changes.
And it's very much 1974 sort of urban hip suave.
Yes, absolutely.
But that works perfectly for his character that goes in and out of whatever accent or whatever sort of dialect he needs for the scene.
It does. And he definitely has several other lines that we've seen already that were very 1974 appropriate.
I love it. There's nothing about Sheriff. I want to be Sheriff Bart.
Well, he is just a very cool guy. He's a hip cat. Very cool. Yeah, he is a hip cat. But also, Cleavon Little is a great actor, and it really it makes me love this movie more. It really makes me love his character more. But it makes me sad that he had such a short life and that he was taken from us so soon, because he is just an obvious talent.
Well, and both of them in this scene, I'll say the same thing about Madeline Kahn. Her life was cut way too short as well.
Yeah, no doubt about that.
All right. Well, I don't have anything left in my minutes. I'm going to say...
On that uplifting note.
Yeah. On the death conversation.
It's a fair point.
Tomorrow we close out the week on Friday. We're going to have a new guest join us to talk about minute number 60. And minute 60 is actually going to start with, why don't you loosen your bullets? And it's going to end with Lily saying, is it... true what they say about how you people are gifted? And before we fade out, let's go ahead and remind our audience one more time. Tierney, where can folks find you?
I love you're just like, and I know you're gonna do the quote, so I'm gonna cut it off. It's true. You can find me on the internet at on Twitter at One Steel Sister. On several Movies by Minutes listener Facebook groups, scattered throughout moviesbyminutes.com. And this summer I will be, you can hear me every weekday, God help us, on MASH Minute. And then I will be doing Joe versus the Minute, which is about Joe versus the volcano, which, again, very different tone, but one of my favorite movies. So
that's a great flick as well. A lot of fun with that one.
It's gonna be so nice after MASH, which I love. Don't get me wrong, I love MASH, and I actually think like it's really important to dig into these movies that have more to them than just, oh, I love this movie. But it's also, when you are talking for 116 episodes about misogyny and racism and everything, it's just kind of like, I'm going to go watch Tom Hanks get marooned and fall in love with Meg Ryan, okay? And it's going to be great. And also, it's a good movie.
Before I go over to Walt, I got to ask one last question for you, because you have done these movies by minutes. I know it was a fear we had, and I think so far we're coming out on the positive rather than the negative. But when you look at a movie 1 minute at a time, have you found your appreciation for the movie to go up or down?
I would say up. Definitely in the case of MASH, it has, but having to go minute by minute, that's the one where, like I said, I didn't even know this character had a name. And Volmer is one of my favorite people now. So Return to Oz, definitely, because I had only watched it as a kid, and then for the nostalgia factor, I never actually looked at the story, so that was really fun to dig into. NeverEnding Story, we had to do the death scene. that was a rough week. But yeah, in general, I would say I appreciate them more, and I'm really nervous because since I can never decide, when people ask what's your favorite movie, if you're really into film, it is a hard question to answer. You know, do you do Star Wars? Do you do Jaws? What do you do? I would say Joe versus the Volcano, because not a lot of people knew it. And I felt like it was one you could stand by. It's one that I've liked, since I saw it for the first time in 1991 or whatever it came out on VHS. And so I felt comfortable being like, I will stand by that. That is my favorite movie. That's fine. I can point to. I'm a little bit nervous about analyzing it 1 minute at a time. That feels like a lot of pressure. Well,
I think when the movie came out, a lot of people didn't quite get what was happening, and they didn't get it. I think in some ways it's a sort of modern take on a satire itself.
Well, it's a fairy tale.
Yeah.
And as a kid, I loved it as a fairy tale. And then as a college kid, I appreciated it for the philosophical stuff. And so,
right.
Yeah, it'll be interesting, definitely.
I'm looking forward to it, because I think a lot of people, when it came out, didn't really know what they were watching. They wanted it to be spoon-fed to them. A lot of modern audiences don't like to have to think a lot, and that's one of those movies that I love, that you watch it and there's a movie happening on the surface, but then there's so much more happening underneath. And I've always been a big fan of Joe versus the Volcano, so I'm happy to hear you tackling that one, and wish you best of luck.
Yes, Jarf and I will be handling that one. So I'm excited to get to talk to him more, other than guesting on Cosmic Geppetto podcast. So that'll be exciting.
Excellent. Walt, how do people learn a little bit more about who we are and what we're doing?
Well, probably the best place to find out more about us is to go out to our website at thewilderride.com. From there, you're going to get bios. You're going to find out all the movies that we've reviewed, all the episodes that you can look up from Young Frankenstein, which we've referenced in this one, and all of our previous Blazing Saddles episodes. Also, you can find out about our guests and get their bios and links to all the great stuff they're working on.
And come back tomorrow. We're going to cap out the week on a Friday, continuing this seductive scene between Sheriff Bart and Lili von Shtupp. And to find out what happens, you got to come back to this, The Wilder Ride.
Bitter, baby.
All right, so I'm good. I'm done. I can go slip into something more comfortable.
Oh, you stole it from me. I wasn't going to say the same thing.
Alan, I'm really glad she stole that from you.
I'm not. That would have been fabulous.
The difference between a man and a woman slipping into something more comfortable. I'm just ripping off my socks and shoes and just sitting there. There we go. Sitting in my underwear in front of the TV. All right, let's put on a movie. Oh, that's sexy.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a big difference in the more comfortable across the sexes.
Yes, I'm so thankful my wife is either suffering from blindness or has permanent rose-colored glasses.
Yeah, I've always kind of scratched my head on that one.
Like, what did you see in me? No, wait, no, don't answer that. Let's keep it a mystery.
Well, I think like most women, she saw a good project.
She saw... She saw a fix-me-upper opportunity.
A good fixer-upper.
Oh, that work is still in progress.
You know how these things work. You always end up with someone dropping out.
Oh, yeah. Walt, do we know anything about that?
Oh, yeah.
Or having to rearrange.
No, we don't know anything about that. That's
Never happened.
never happens on our show.
So while you're looking that up, have you ever given or received a wed wose? And was it womantic?
Oh, gosh, thank you for saying Red Rose. I did not know where you were going with that.
No, they're sold out of pickle helms. So
Yes, I have given a Red Rose.